In episode 2 of the amazing digital circus, Pomni's adventure in the Candy Canyon Kingdom forces her to confront the surreal and bleak reality of life in the circus.
It's more dangerous than you think.
The Amazing Digital Circus is an online animated show about a colourful cast of characters stuck in a Technicolor digital prison known as the Circus.
It is strange.
The basic premise of episode 2 is that Pomni is taken on an adventure as part of her new life in the circus. Episode 2 also gives us our first hint at Pomni's character development. In this video, I want to discuss why I think the new character of Gummigoo, despite his ridiculous name, elevates episode 2 from an amusing 25 minutes to a compelling and intriguing little story. And it's interesting how confronting the artifice of her digital world prompted Pomni to be bold and fearless, but more on that later. First, let's go over the basic plot of the episode, then we can unpack the more intriguing storytelling elements and how all this changed Pomni. Episode 2 opens with Pomni having a nightmare about herself abstracting, which was depicted in episode 1, the pilot, as a complete physical and mental breakdown. In the nightmare, 3 other characters, Jax, Kane and Ragatha, watch Pomni's breakdown and dissolution with detached amusement. When Pomni wakes up, Ragatha is at her door, asking her if she's okay and saying there's no hard feelings for the time Pomni abandons her. It comes across as possibly passive-aggressive, which is probably why Pomni doesn't look reassured or put at ease. Next thing, Kane sends them on an adventure to the Candy Canyon Kingdom. When Ragatha tries to get Pomni excited about the adventure, Pomni's only response is, "You don't have to hype me up, I'm not a child." Soon after, we're introduced to a trio of gummy crocodiles who want to get the syrup they've stolen back to their leader's mother. Our heroes begin pursuit of the gummy crocs, and after a series of moderately violent animated shenanigans, the croc's truck crashes into a digital abyss with the croc leader and Pomni on board. It's not just a digital abyss, however, it's also a digital archive with the design templates for the croc leader and the other key characters associated with his home. The templates are blatant evidence that the Candy Canyon Kingdom is just a digital creation. The croc leader's mother, however, isn't among the design templates. This catapults the poor croc into an existential crisis as he realizes that his life is fake. This is the part of the episode that I particularly want to focus on today. When Pomni's initial attempts to escape the abyss come to nothing, she sees the croc doesn't seem to care about getting out. When she asks if he's okay, he points out, "I'm nothing. My life, my memories, my friends, it's all fake." Pomni tries to be empathetic, arguing that feeling like you're nothing is kinda normal. She goes so far as to offer him a place in her new home, the circus. When he presses her on why she even cares, she states, "I guess I just don't want you to feel like you're nothing. I don't want anybody to feel like that." After a bit of back and forth, they agree on the new plan, and Pomni's friend introduces himself as Gummigoo, which Pomni jokes is just about as ridiculous as her name. Pomni and Gummigoo escape after Pomni figures out how to make the truck fly out of the abyss somehow. Then she reunites with the others and they return to the circus with Gummigoo in tow. Gummigoo looks around and has only just noted that he could get used to the place when Kane finally realizes he's there. With a snap of his fingers, Kane erases Gummigoo from existence. Pomni is, understandably, absolutely horrified. The episode appropriately ends with a funeral, but it's not a funeral for Gummigoo. It's a funeral for Kofmo, the character who indirectly caused Pomni's nightmare when he abstracted in the first episode. At the funeral, Pomni sees the genuine sadness of the other characters as they honor the memory of Kofmo. This contrasts completely with the callous disregard she imagined from the other characters during her nightmare of herself abstracting, and she smiles. It's a clever way to bring the episode full circle, starting and ending with the horror of abstracting, but ending with valuable knowledge Pomni gained this episode. While she guessed Ragatha's friendliness and concern for her was fake, Ragatha isn't as fake as she seemed. Just as Pomni had real empathy for Gummigoo, she sees that Ragatha and at least some of the other characters, Gangle, Kinga and Zubul, have real empathy and compassion too. But while the episode is emotionally satisfying for the way it comes full circle, equally important is the use of a strong emotional crisis at the central point of the story, what can be called an emotional midpoint. In his book The Emotional Craft of Fiction, Donald Mast describes the emotional midpoint as a second where the story is suspended, unable to go backward and about to plunge forward into the unknown. Episode 2 of The Amazing Digital Circus represents this visually with the digital abyss. When Pomni and Gummigoo plunge into the abyss, surely the last thing either of them expects is to be exposed to the artifice of their world, a blatant display of character designs as physically present as they are. No wonder Pomni tries so hard to connect with Gummigoo when she sees him struggling. When he is emotionally shattered by the sight of himself as a mere digital design, is that so different from her having only vague memories of her life before the circus? Is that so different from her seeing one of her fellow members of the circus, Kofmo, abstract as he all but dissolves into nothingness? Another writing trick Mast mentions in The Emotional Craft of Fiction is what he calls the emotional breakthrough or getting real. As Mast puts it, there's force and emotional effect in sweeping away artifice and exposing the raw reality that we usually try to ignore. Now, what Mast focuses on here is dialogue, breaking that vaunted writer's rule of show don't tell, but it applies equally well to the physical or digital reality that Pomni and Gummigoo see exposed for what it is. For Gummigoo, this is a complete punch in the gut that he never could have expected, but for Pomni, this is throwing the reality she's been trying to ignore straight in her face. The episode started with her nightmares about abstracting, and she spent her day trying to be aloof and detached. When she told Ragatha, "You don't have to hype me up, I'm not a child," it was more than a sarcastic one-liner, it was a way of asserting her emotional detachment. After all, hyping someone up is a way of getting them emotionally engaged, and the last thing Pomni wants is to feel emotionally engaged with her horrifying new digital life. But seeing Gummigoo's emotional pain, she sets aside her attempts at detachment and gets real. This leads us to the dialogue. When Pomni tells Gummigoo, "I guess I just don't want you to feel like you're nothing. I don't want anybody to feel like that." This is telling, not showing. It works because it signals a glimpse at a beginning for Pomni's character development, and it draws upon the theme set up at the episode's beginning. The fear of dissolving into nothingness that gave Pomni nightmares at the episode's beginning is made explicit, not as a confession of her own misery, but as a direct attempt to ease the suffering of someone who Pomni sees in similar emotional pain. As Mast puts it, getting real is what happens when a scene's subtext bursts through. Any sudden shift in tone, unexpected openness, or other call to genuineness and honesty can become electrifying and emotional. We don't show our true colors lightly, telling the truth of things is risky. And so when Pomni gets honest and real, she is also getting vulnerable. Her moment of boldness with Gummigoo arguably gets her in a more fearless frame of mind, which pays off when she manages to fly their truck out of the abyss. Incidentally, let me know in the comments if you get how Pomni pulls that off. That perplexes me. Regardless, we see some nice symmetry where the midpoint is mirrored at the very end. Just as Gummigoo softens to Pomni when she gets raw and honest with him in the abyss, Pomni softens to Ragatha, Gangle, Kinga, and Zubul when she sees their raw emotional honesty at the funeral. At least for me, this all makes for a compelling episode that has me intrigued for what comes next on this weird show. That wraps up my thoughts about episode 2 of The Amazing Digital Circus. If you enjoyed my take on the nightmarish digital purgatory imprisoning Pomni, you can help the channel by liking and subscribing. Thank you to those of you who have subscribed already. Have a great week and thank you for watching.